that's pulling at our core, this desire in our soul. And when you're working in a mission-driven profession like education, when you see the dropout rates that we have, that's a huge red flag. And everyone knows it. And unfortunately, we stick at it because we are so called to support these children. But there's no clear alternative there. And at some point, we've got to have a look outside and see what people are doing is actually benefiting them, but mostly benefiting the kids. And that's what we're there to do in the first place, is work for them.
Hello, Quanta folks, and welcome to another episode of Alchemising Education, our little sister podcast for Vakerschuds. I am Jodi from QuantiMama.
Hello, everyone, and I am Kerri from QuantiMama.
Yes, you are. And today we have a beautiful man, a guest that's going to, I think, crack parents' hearts wide open, because this will be very much, I think, a very honest and impassioned plea for us to sit up and take note. I feel that we need to call him Mr. Zalunardo. He's going to, oh my God, I've already got it wrong. We're going to call him Mr. Z. Jonathan from Apogee Australia, not quite former teacher, because really you're still a teacher, but is joining us today to essentially give us a look behind Oz's curtain of what's happening in schools today. Yep. Jonathan, we're so delighted you're here to join us for this conversation. Thank you. And again, sorry for messing up your name yet again.
It's been my whole life, so I won't hold you to it. But thank you for having me here, Jodi and Kerri. The honour is mine.
Yeah, we're delighted. So I guess just to get right into it, we wanted to have this conversation, but essentially it is an open letter to the teachers of Australia. And I suppose if we lead from that platform or that space, why are you here? What has been, your journey, for want of a better term, but your pathway to getting to this point where you now have essentially an open letter to teachers, to the teachers of Australia?
So I was a teacher, a school teacher, primary school teacher I worked in the schools for a bit over 10 years. While I was in university, I worked in the schools in the ACT, we call it a learning support assistant. And then I was a teacher for going on 8 years, and I decided to walk away from it because, like many before me that have stepped away, I felt like something wasn't aligned with the reason that I got into it in the first place. And teaching is one of those professions that is mission driven. There's something deeper inside of us that calls us to do it. It's not, like selling cars or, working down at the butcher shop. There's something that really calls at us to want to transmit a culture and work with these beautiful young people to teach them about the way we think we should live. And I didn't really feel like I was doing that. And I decided that for not only my own sanity, but for the children that I was teaching, that I needed to go out into the world and look at what education looked like, not in a school, and what it could look like if it was actually designed as intended to transmit a way of living and a way of pouring into the children first, and not imparting on them something that a system has decided we need to do.
That is obviously a beautiful thing. The immediate thought I have is there's probably parents everywhere going, we need you in the schools because you're there for the right reasons. You're not jaded. You haven't acquiesced to a system that is built on overwhelm for these teachers. And we know that because we talk to so many teachers in the system trying to meet all the requirements, wanting so earnestly to be able to represent the kids, and essentially being worn down over time. How does that then look when you leave the education model, the traditional education model? What has been then your solution as what you see as an answer to what's missing or what's not being met within the school system?
What's not being met? Well, when I started to have my doubts raised about whether what I was doing was right or not, the only place I decided I could look for the answer was the kids. And I worked alongside a lot of fantastic people, fantastic teachers, and I think every single one of them is a good person at their core. And they get forced into doing things that, or not forced, but they comply to the system by doing things that they see other people do as a way of trying to make it work. So I started to look not at what my colleagues were doing, but at what the kids were saying, what their actions were portraying, because that was the reason I was there, was to serve them. So I first and foremost took a step back and had a look at the way they were acting, at what the things that they were saying and what they wanted, and I took that as my cue to do what I always intended on doing, and that was serving them. So it was tricky when you're trying to play the game of school and do everything that you're being told to do on a day-to-day basis, of the reporting and all that kind of thing. But within each day, there is so much time for them to hear what they have to say and learn about them as humans and the things that really light them up. And it's funny, I've thought about this for quite a while, what made me have this sense of wanting to know what the kids wanted to do. And I have one man in my life who is sadly no longer with us. But my memory of him is that he always looked at me with such curiosity. And whenever I spoke, I could genuinely feel his desire to want to hear me speak. And I think a little bit of that got imparted on me. So I always took it upon myself to really listen to what lit the kids up. And it's pretty easy to hear what their passions are, because they come out with it straight away, what they're interested in, because that's what wakes them up every day. It's the first thing they think about.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way that gets lost a little bit. But when you start digging, you can pretty quickly find what that is. And that's how I lent into the children and served them as best as I could, despite the fact that my days were often made up doing things that neither of us wanted to do, unfortunately, but there was still a lot of room for them.
Jonathan, what is it that's making the job so difficult for these teachers? Like, why are they not able to do what you desire to do?
So you can look at the history of schooling, and there's people that'll be able to talk about that history far better than I can. The Prussian model and the hidden lessons of schooling, all that kind of thing. I'm not an expert on that. I've done my due diligence and know a little bit about it, but we are stuck in a cycle of reporting and testing and working to the curriculum, which none of us designed. We inherited it, and it just gets passed down to us from people that came before. And I don't think anyone necessarily designed it with a sinister, motive. But somewhere along the way, we've just got caught up in thinking that we need to impart all this knowledge on these kids without actually looking at them first. And when you're working off this document, this national curriculum that is designed to give everyone a fair go, we're not actually giving that individual child a fair go. We're not leading with them first and then putting the building blocks in place for them to have the skills that might be in that document, because they don't need every single one of them. They don't need everything that's in the science strand and the history and whatever might actually be in it. I've worked off of it for years, and I can't even articulately explain what's in it. So how on earth could we expect that a child and a family is going to be able to to explain it. And so we just get caught up in this cycle of doing things that other people are telling us to do and not actually leading with our own intuition. And a lot of the people that I have worked with, they have families of their own, or their aunts, uncles. They've got this passion for working with young people, but we're not actually working with them. And so often we're working against them and making them do something that we've been told is what they need, yet every single one of our senses tells us the opposite. So we're just in total disalignment and just trying to find some clarity in each day to get us through. But unfortunately, we're working against our own intuition.
That's very powerful because, we talk a lot about essentially emboldening in our kids and ourselves to live in alignment. And what that basically means is honouring that inner truth or that intuition that kicks in. And I can only imagine how corrosive and carcinogenic that would be for a teacher's mental health who started out with what we'll call the right reasons, but basically altruistic intentions about what their career could be and how they could have the ripple effect through their community with children, to then be in this space where they're living out of alignment, not having the intuition on it, knowing that it's wrong, but still doing it, So it's almost like this sort of self-abuse cycle that happens that just must be so corrosive to even how you show up in the world, how you feel about yourself, how you interact with those around you, including the, students that are under your tutelage as well. And so if you could speak to, I guess, the teachers at large who are in varying degrees of being worn down or disillusioned to the point where they choose to go on strike, and I absolutely applaud that, because you need to have something that captures the community's attention, that the situation needs, some kind of remedial action. What do you want to say to them?
Your instincts are right that we want to do something different. And I applaud every single teacher that sticks at it, because the kids need us. And there's a part of me that just wants to go back into a school tomorrow and be there with the kids and be alongside the teachers, the good people that are still there day to day doing what's right by them. But I guess my mission and what I've decided that I want to go and do is I want to go and find a way and prove to people that this schooling system that, like I said, we've inherited isn't the only way to do it. And that, we look at a child up until the age of 5, they don't go to school and they learn to walk, read, talk. They learn to do all these things, feed themselves, share. The list goes on and on. But for whatever reason, we decide that once we get to this age, we've got to do it this way. And to step outside and say, there is a different way. We can do it. And there's a whole community of people that have stepped outside of the conventional systems that are proving that to us day to day, like the both of you that have stepped out and decided that there's a different way of educating our children. And I look at this phrase, this cultural transmission, and it's one that Dr. Peter Gray outlines in his book Free to Learn, and it's one that really stuck with me when I started to look at education a little bit closer through my own eyes, and I look at what is the purpose of what we're doing in the first place. Are we just trying to build resumes for these kids, or is there something deeper at our core that we're trying to pass on to these children? And it's that way of living. I want my child to be better than I was. I want the children of my community to learn our way of life, what we hold dear, our values, our customs, to pass that on and allow them to carry that forth, but then build a better world. And inside the system that we've built, I hazard to guess that many people actually think that that's the best way to do it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the dissatisfaction that we see. The dropout rates of teachers are what they are because it's pulling at our core, this desire in our soul. And when you're working in a mission-driven profession like education, when you see the dropout rates that we have, that's a huge red flag. and everyone knows it. And unfortunately, we stick at it because we are so called to support these children, but there's no clear alternative there. And at some point, we've got to have a look outside and see what people are doing is actually benefiting them, but mostly benefiting the kids. And that's what we're there to do in the first place, is work for them.
Absolutely. And look, one of the things I really love is that, and I'd love for you to share more about the Apogee program, and I guess what it is, but why you were attracted to it, because I think, like us, you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're actually being an agent of change. We're doing it on a very small scale in our own families, a little bit wider in terms of the fact that we support other families in this as well, but you're actually showing up for the kids. And I think that's potent. It's absolutely potent. And you prove to people that it's possible too, because, the invisible barrier to change is the thing that stops people from taking that first step. So, tell us about Apogee. Tell us what were the things that made you essentially fall in love with this as an offering to then bring this to Australian families?
So the story with Apogee, that's a good question. So when COVID happened, like many people, had the veil unlifted, and I started looking into different things that people were doing in education, for lack of a better term, because I saw COVID as an opportunity for us to say, all right, we're not at school anymore. Let's listen to the kids. They're at home. They're not in the room with us. So world's our oyster kind of thing. What can we do in the home that serves them? And that didn't really happen. So I started looking, and I discovered a gentleman named Matt Boudreau, who he founded 3 schools of his own under the Acton Academy banner, and then life took its course and he stepped away from those campuses. I won't go into the full details of that, and started Apogee with his business partner Tim Kennedy. And it started as a mentorship program serving young men primarily, and then that was so successful that it turned into a men's program, and now it's got programs for women and young women also. But then the opportunity came up where they started an affiliate license. So there was one initial campus that started, and that's in Austin, Texas. And I had actually gone through the process to become an Acton affiliate, and I had no idea what that entailed. I just thought, oh, this looks cool, I'll do it. Totally naive to what that would actually entail. And I got to speak to Matt while he was a Acton affiliate. And so I became a follower of his. I really resonated with his message. And when the opportunity to become an Apogee affiliate arose, I just said to my wife, Tembi, we have to do this. We have to give this a shot, because I was so fed up with what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. I was frustrated. I was going into work angry. I was still showing up because I loved being there with the young heroes, these young kids that they're just awesome. They're so much fun, and they've got so much enthusiasm, and they're so curious, and that energy that they bring you, it keeps you coming back. But I needed to do it different. I couldn't persist in this struggle that we all experience. So what the Apogee affiliate program essentially is it offers an opportunity for people to work with Apogee to create a campus of their own creation. So some of the Apogee affiliates in the United States, which I went and visited in June, they operate as micro schools, or some of them are official schools. Some of them are specifically just mentorship programs. Some of them only operate as higher education. So there's a whole range of different things that the Apogee affiliates are doing over there in the States. And what called to Tembi and I is that we really want to work with families. We see this, gap in education where parents feel like they're incapable of working with their children. They feel like they don't have the knowledge to work with their kids or provide their children with what they need. But what we've learned through Apogee is that a parent, they are the primary educator of their child. They come first. and that anything else that's alongside that is a supplement to that. So what we're creating, it's not a school where we don't want to call it that. We've done that game. And so what we're designing is something very different. It's where the families, we work alongside them. We look at what the families desire for their children, and we have our skills that we have taken from the schooling system. We know how to teach kids to read and write and do arithmetic and all that kind of thing. We can do that. But what we're really interested in is working with mum and dad and the children to unpack their curiosity and look at what it is that they bring to the world. What's their genius? And that word genius is an interesting one, because there's this really interesting study done by NASA that actually, this is a total tangent, that tested preschool children for genius. And it came back with over 90% of kids tested for genius. But then as they aged and they continued to do this test, it evaporated. This so-called genius failed to show anymore. And they linked that to schooling. So we look at these kids, that they all have something that lights them up, their genius, their talent that they can truly bring to the world. And that's what we want to unpack. We want to give them those frameworks of being able to read and being able to write, and a good moral code, and build a community of people that can work all together in pouring into these young people and giving them something that, we didn't necessarily have, but also allowing that to align with our family values and what we believe is best for them, because a good country is built by good families. That's what we believe, and that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. That's amazing. That it's such a gift, and the fact that you've identified the gap in the programming of the education system and the separation of family from being involved or feeling qualified to be a part of that is really important. So to know that Apogee Australia was going to be able to focus on that, I certainly know through my own experience that when things got a bit tough, they sort of almost say you're helicopter parenting, you can't get involved, let us deal with this, and it's kind of like, no, you're separating us. We want to build the relationships with our children, so that they feel like they're part of community, so they can trust relationships and trust themselves. So what you're doing is amazing. And what I also love is the fact that you are that example of, recognizing where things aren't in alignment, and you're kind of going, this isn't working for me. How do I help these kids when I'm not in alignment? And once you're in alignment as the educator or the facilitator or the guide or the mentor, you're shining when you talk about it, Jonathan, so that's got to rub off on these kids. And the fact that the programs are so structured that they can't find what lights them up along the way, whereas you're the demonstration as an adult, and we all have to demonstrate as adults, is that, when we're not in alignment, we need to be allowed to pivot. We need to be allowed to change. We need to be able to try new things. And that's, as adults, we demonstrate that, and your program is going to be able to help that for the families and the kids. So, yeah, it's exciting, really exciting.
Thank you.
So where to from here?
Where to from here? That's a good question. We're figuring it out day by day, but our deepest desire is to be back with families and children, and my wife and I, we have a child of our own. She's not even 3 years old yet. We've got another one that's going to join us here in the world in a couple of months.
Very exciting.
But so we're on this journey ourselves of watching our daughter and seeing the way that she grows up in this world. So we feel like we're learning this all over again. Like, what is it that a child requires to become a stand-up human? And this is what we're in the business of. It's human development. And so we're learning it from the ground up as we speak. So we're also stepping into the world of business and doing education our way, and in a way that aligns with us. So we're out there talking to families at the minute about what we are looking to create, and seeing if there's anyone that aligns with our vision for not just education, but the way we live our life. And I say this word education, and there's the schooling and curriculum and all these things, but it's just on a day-to-day basis. Like when we look at our kids, what they're doing, what they're curious about, and follow their patterns of existence, then your day-to-day just becomes its own story and its own journey, and there's never going to not be something to do. So we're being led by her and led by the questions that arise day to day on that people come to us with about education, and we just take it as it comes. We're building some really cool partnerships with people up here on the sunny coast and around the country with yourselves in working with families and helping unpack what it is that what we're here to do, just as humans. Like, why are we on this earth in the first place? Like, that question in itself, like that's something that I'm still trying to figure out, and I don't think you ever get the answer to. But when we raise our children, how do we coalesce that with their upbringing? What do we want for them? What do we want as adults, and how do we tie that all together as a way of life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for us, we obviously we're interested in the parents so that parents can be the ripple effect for their children. And when the parents feel, I guess, without a compass, that makes this whole process seem really overwhelming. So, we tend to say, look, you've just got to find a framework that works. And I think that the thing that excites me about programs or frameworks like Apogee, but even the energy that you've put behind that, like the reason why you are where you are, is really compelling for parents. You're someone who has seen inside the system, has done their level best to show up in this way that you want to, your best version of yourself for your kids and so forth, as in your students, and then basically gone, this is not working, we need to find another framework so that we can keep the genius spark alive. We don't dampen that down. And if there was ever a reason for a parent to make a change, surely that has got to be it. Because I think within all of us parents, depending on our experience in the education system, there is a remembering that genius spark was extinguished, or at least dimmed at some point, because we all had it, right? And when I look at what kids do in their first, say, even 3 years of life, or even from gestation, if you think about the innate intelligence of nature and the way cells combine and create a human with toenails and eyebrows, it's just wild, right?
We're not doing that. The cells, it's in them.
That's right. So, I mean, I think we identify as geniuses from that point, right? We grew 5 fingers and, all those sort of things. So there must be something that must hit the hearts of parents where they're just, in order to make that first move, take that first step, they need to have some assurance that they will be caught on the other side. And I think that, having a program that supports family dynamics is just, it's like the pinnacle of a solution for having an alternative way to live life. And so I'm really grateful that people like yourself have actually found a pathway out of the known comfort and assurance of just having a career that didn't feel in alignment, so almost that, what do you call it, that kind of devaluing of your own values and actually putting yourself out there. It's incredibly brave. And I just want to say that to you from one parent to another, that I'm so grateful, and I'm sure I'm speaking for many around the country, probably the world, because it's a shared concern. But, we're very grateful that there are brave people like you that do find another solution. I think this is going to be something that's going to interest a lot of people. And I know that at this stage you're looking at sort of in person based on the Sunshine Coast, but the hope is obviously for the tentacles to spread throughout the country. Is that right?
Yeah. So Apogee, anyone can become an Apogee affiliate. We just went through the application process and were accepted. I still sort of wonder why I was accepted, because, like anyone, I'm my own harshest critic and know that I have many deficiencies. But and I still wonder why people would ever trust me with their child, but I'm very grateful that people have been kind enough in the past to let me teach their children, and now we're going out and doing that on our own. And so anyone that wants to, or if the message of Apogee appeals to them, they can become an affiliate themselves. But I guess with what we're wanting to create, we hope that we can, in one way or another, show people that there is a different way of living, of educating, and that we can maybe inspire someone along the way. But first and foremost, this is about our family and the people here that we aim to serve on the sunny coast, and that we just want to get back to the mission that we set out to do in the first place as teachers, and working with families and working with kids, and unpacking that genius, and being the hero to these kids, and just setting some good standards and living with some good values that the kids can aim to uphold. Like, we want these kids to be good people. We want them to let their genius shine. Well, guess what? You're gonna have to meet a pretty high mark, because we're gonna be the ones that are setting that mark. And we've got some fantastic families up here on the sunny coast that are just awesome people, that are great mums, great dads, that are out there killing it, doing so much in their day to day. And their kids they got a high bar to meet. And as a collective, we're going to be able to really set a standard for these children that makes them incredible people. And we already know that they are incredible, and that one way or another that we're going to really make a difference for our country, because we love this place and we just consider ourselves so fortunate to be here. And I've only been on the sunny coast a little while, but this place is absolute paradise, and we just want to honour that and do what's right by our beautiful community.
Beautiful.
That is a beautiful note to end on.
Yeah.
Mr. Z, thank you so much for joining us. And, we absolutely will point people in the direction of Apogee. I think that, solutions-based frameworks are what families need. And we're so grateful for you, your passion and your commitment to making this happen. Another beautiful conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jono. We really appreciate it, because we need people like you to just be, changing things up and giving parents some, confidence that there's other ways. So, yeah, thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Sorry.
John. No, you're right. I will never cut off a teacher again. Let that be on record.
Yeah.
Quanta folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for, participating in this conversation with your presence. But more than that, use this as an opportunity to take action in some small measure, if only just to honour what's right for you and your heart, but also your children. It is possible. There are people out there looking for solutions, and, you might be one of them. Until next time, Quanta folks, with this Alchemising Education conversation.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone. See you soon.
Hey, Quanta folks. The conversations that we have about alchemising education are underpinned by our amazing Take the Leap course for parents, which is all about deschooling the parents. If you're keen to deep dive more, then check out the QuantiMama.com website and find the Take the Leap course. This course is beautiful because it will give you an opportunity to examine where your programs are, where you're creating limiting beliefs and expectations for your child. And it ultimately frees you to be the best advocate for your child that you can be. And that's all of us can ever want for our children. Just to love, nurture, and watch them become the most incredible individuals that we already know them to be. So more info, head to QuantiMama.com. Beautiful Quanta folks. At QuantiMama, we have a mandate that we feel so passionate about. We want and we are raising the community's vibration and frequency and consciousness through parenting and birth experiences. Such incredible, transformational experiences that will shape you as a person and are the very fabric of life. Do you want to find out how to high vibe your experience even more? Then QuantiMama is your place. Head there for the High Vibe Birth course, ultimate preparation for birthing. Head there if you want to re-engage your child in the love of learning for the Take the Leap course, which is a deschooling course for parents. There's beautiful mind movies, and obviously this podcast is there, and we are here to support you. So head there for all the juice.